Welcome back to another edition of New York Got Game, and Happy New Year to everyone out there. It is a new year. We're now in 2026, and the Knicks, they're being tested early. 3 straight losses, and the fan base has a lot of questions. Questions about the defense, questions about the offensive flow, and a team right now that is trying to find its identity as 2026 gets underway. Look, adversity is nothing new for this Knicks franchise, but how you respond to it always matters. So, this week, we're going to take a hard look at where the Knicks are right now. We're going to look at what's working, what's slipping, and why their next game, the next game for the Bockers here, feels bigger than just one result. Because standing across from them is a top team in the East, the Detroit Pistons group that's grown, evolved, and hasn't forgotten how last spring ended for them. Is this a get-right moment for the Knicks or a statement opportunity for Detroit? We've got answers from both sides on this one. This is New York Got Game. Let's get right into it. So we're going to tip things off this week. We're going to start by looking at things on the New York side here. We're going to look at the Knicks. And so joining me now is one of the people who sees this Knicks team up close every single day. That's the New York Post Knicks beat writer, Stefan Bondy, joins me now from Detroit. Steph, how you doing, man?
Good, good. It's kind of chilly in Detroit, but it's also chilly back home, so not that big of a difference.
This is true. There's no time for you to get out the cold anytime soon with a lot of Northeast travel. Though you do have a West Coast trip coming up, so you might get
Yep.
some warmer weather coming your way soon. Steph, let's get into it because the Knicks, they haven't looked good these last 3 games. From your vantage point covering this team daily, how would you describe the Knicks' overall form during this 3-game loser streak and what we've seen from them?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things at play. One is there was a hangover from the NBA Cup. I didn't think they expected that, but I think it caught up with them, that's for sure. Two, Josh Hart's injury has kind of changed the dynamic of this team. You kind of overlook how important he is to the defense and the offense, how he speeds up the pace, and how he's this glue guy that when he's not there, things tend to get undone. So that's the second thing, and then the third thing that the defense has just looked pretty atrocious the last few weeks now. So, couple weeks. So, I think those are the 3 factors. If we're talking about the defense, and I don't know if you had a question specifically planned about the
I do.
defense. So, all right, so let's just go to that one then.
Yeah, no, we can go to that too because I definitely had it. You kind of lined up some of the things that I thought here. Then let's just get rid of it. The defense, you're right. You said atrocious. That was the word you used. It has been atrocious lately. What stands out to you the most about the Knicks' defensive breakdowns during this stretch? What we've seen are we looking at effort here, Steph? Is it schematic issues or is it matchup-driven problems? What are you seeing that's wrong with the defense right now?
Yeah, you know what? They look a lot like last season, and
Mm.
they have almost the identical record that they did at this point last season, and their defense was bad at this point in the season last season. Part of it is that Mikal Bridges is not pulling his weight in terms of being a point of attack defender and getting through screens and navigating the pick and roll. You have Cat and Brunson in the lineup frequently. Those are 2 below average defenders individually. And then, I heard, that this is something that I'm going to have to confirm because I talked to a scout recently. I'm going to have to start paying closer attention to this. But I think the Knicks scheme is to direct the opponent to the middle rather than to the baseline, which kind of goes against a lot of things you're taught, as a basketball player and things you're supposed to do as a coach. So I can imagine if that is the case, then that's some takes adjusting to. That might be confusing to players. So that might be an aspect at play here, but still, I think just the overall point of attack defense has been the main problem.
So you brought up the point of attack defense there, Steph, and in the most recent game we saw against the Sixers on Saturday, you saw Miles McBride play a lot more down the stretch. He played 31 minutes in that game. He also played 31 minutes against the Hawks. And Mike Brown was asked about it after the game, and he said, he needed his offense, and obviously McBride has shot the ball well since coming back. But you just brought up the point about Mikal Bridges and his point of attack defense. Is that something Knicks fans should be concerned about? And can you see more of Miles McBride sort of in that spot over Bridges?
Yeah, I think it depends on the matchup. I mean, the problem with McBride is he's short.
Right.
He's 6 feet. So you don't want him guarding Cade Cunningham, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think they're going to throw OG at Cade because that's what they did in the playoffs last year, and they really have been for the most part trying to throw OG at the team's best perimeter player, but sometimes Mikal has to pick up the slack, and he hasn't been. So I think it's really matchup driven. I think what you applaud McBride for and what Mike Brown really loved Landry Shamet is his ability to get up in the defender's grill, not let him breathe, get up in his space, getting around those screens, picking up full court, that defensive intensity that McBride has that you don't always see from Mikal. So I think that's more in line with what what I've seen, what Mike has talked about. Now he's never going to throw Mikal under the bus, so he's been complimenting a lot of Mikal. He's called Mikal, I mean not Mikal, Deuce. He called Deuce, um, Landry Shamet, and Kevin McCullough the three best on-ball defenders on the team. So to me, that said something. And I think it's matchup driven though.
We'll see how that plays out. Now, you hit on something before. We're talking about the offense, Steph, and that hasn't looked right for the Knicks either, particularly in these last three games. You talked about Josh Hart and his absence. How much have you seen him change the Knicks' offensive, him being out, the Knicks' offensive rhythm and also their identity? That just seemed to have shifted on offense. How impactful is that in a way that fans may or may not see?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you see with Josh is when he gets the ball, he's running. He's going full steam ahead. He's a tremendous finisher in transition. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even know how that ball went in. Like he's going down the lane, after a turnover or even after a make by the opposition, he'll get the ball and just start going, and he'll throw up a layup where he's falling backwards and it just tends to go in. I think he's obviously a very unselfish player with the ball, so he's always looking to facilitate. He keeps the ball moving. There are a lot of things that makes Josh Hart the glue guy that I talked about, and the contributions that he makes in offense, both in transition and as a facilitator, are part of that.
How much of what we're seeing offensively, Steph, over these past, 5 games or so since Josh Hart has been out, how much of that feels connected to, pace? The pace hasn't really been there for the Knicks, something that we heard a lot about in the preseason. We heard this back on media day, right? Is it more pace? Is it more shot quality in terms of the issues that you're seeing with the Knicks offensively?
I think it's a combination of things. I think the pace is never really. If you notice, Mike Brown stopped talking about it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he talked about it the first 5 games, or we got to get to the corners, or we got to play faster, we got to play fast. I remember the first 5 games, he said we got to play faster about 100 times. He doesn't say it anymore. I think there was a coming to a realization that maybe that this team isn't equipped to play totally like he wanted them to play from the beginning, and that's fine. You're supposed to adjust to the personnel that you have. So I don't know how much Josh's recent absence had to do with that. I think that going back even further, that the pace was never going to be what Mike Brown had wanted it to be originally. So I don't tie that specifically into Josh's absence.
All right. So something to look at there. Shot selection has been decent for the Knicks. They just haven't been hitting some shots. You think that might change in coming games. Now, in recent weeks, Steph, we've seen several young players get some minutes under Mike Brown. How helpful is that to the Knicks improving their depth? And do you still think, despite some young players emerging, if you want to use that word, Mohamed Diawara, Kevin McCullough Jr., do you still think the Knicks need to make a move to improve their depth by the trade deadline?
I'm going to wait and see on whether I personally think they need to. I think if you look at what Tyler Kolek did, he had a great NBA Cup. He had a great Christmas game. But since then, he's had a couple of duds. And, I think that the backup point guard is still something this team may want to address depending on what they see from Tyler Kolek until the February. We still have over a month left before the deadline. So, I kind of like a wait and see approach. I know that they've been, trying to see if they can unload Gershon Yabusele because his start with this team has gotten so off track. And he probably feels like, he can have a fresh start and a bigger opportunity somewhere else. With that being said, he has been more part of the rotation recently. He went from a total DMP to getting a few minutes. So we'll see where that goes. But I think obviously, if you look at the models of the OKC Thunder and the Indiana Pacers, both who made the NBA Finals, it was they overwhelmed you with depth. They overwhelmed you with the amount of players they can throw in there, the different looks they can give you. Obviously they have fresh bodies because they're playing fewer minutes. They kind of laid the groundwork for the model for what the Knicks are trying to aspire to. It remains to be seen whether Mohamed Diawara and Kevin McCullough and Tyler Kolek can actually be real contributors in a playoff situation. But that's the hope.
Yeah, the hope is that, but that is the big question, like you said right there. Can they contribute in a postseason situation? Let's move on to this Pistons game here on Monday. From a mental standpoint, how important is this game for the Knicks after 3 straight losses? Because after their 3rd straight loss, Mike Brown talked about adversity. That was a word he used time and time again. How important is this game in your eyes for the Knicks to get right after these 3 straight losses?
Yeah, I think it's a confidence booster. And I'm not going to put too much. I know it's the number 1 seed versus the
Right.
number 2, right? But I'm not going to put much stock into that. The Pistons are banged up too. They won't have Jalen Duren or Tobias Harris. They just played a game just now, wrapped up about a couple hours ago in Cleveland. So they're playing on a back-to-back after flying in from Cleveland. So I don't think this is a good litmus test for either team. But I think well, from a Knicks perspective, it's important to build up confidence at this point. They're obviously in the biggest slide of the season. This is their first 3-game losing streak of the season. A team, whether you even at not at full strength, a win in Detroit, the place where they kind of ripped the hearts out of the fans here, where Jalen Brunson hit that shot, quieted all of them after they were cursing him out. I think that'd be a good confidence booster for them.
Yeah, it would be a confidence booster. Yeah, you kind of wish everybody was a little bit healthier to see how this would look as a litmus test, but got to wait and see for that down the road. Now, Steph, what makes Detroit a particularly difficult opponent for the Knicks right now, despite being down 2 starters? Karis LeVert also may not likely or could play in this game, still up in the air. What makes them so tough for the Knicks now, given where New York is right now defensively? We talked about all the defensive issues. So what makes Detroit so tough for them?
I mean, they've been having a lot of problems with the pick and roll, and Greg, guess who's really good at navigating the pick and roll?
Cade
Cade
Cunningham.
Cunningham. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and we're talking about a guy who, I think he's been the best player in the Eastern Conference. It's really up to only 3 people. It's Cade Cunningham, Jaylen Brown, and Jalen Brunson. And you could definitely argue that Cade has been the top of that bunch. So he's been tremendous. They have I believe they're the number 2 rated defense in the NBA right now, only behind OKC. So they'll give you all kinds of problems on that, and obviously Jalen Duren's a big part of that, and he won't be there. But they're a great defensive team. Cade Cunningham is a lot to deal with. They're a good team, and I think the only thing why people aren't true believers in the Pistons is because usually there's like a process. There's a gradual building up of a team. You have to win a round, and then you have to win 2 rounds to really be battle tested and show people that you can do it. This is a team that hasn't won a playoff series in I don't know 20 years. I don't even remember when the last time the franchise won a playoff series. So the only reason you don't believe in them is because they haven't done it before. But they're certainly capable, and they're having a great start to the season.
Oh, they absolutely are at the top of the East right now. In terms of this game, is there a matchup in this game that you're most interested in watching as a barometer for whether the Knicks are correcting issues or still searching? Is there something, in that matchup that'll show you that?
Well, I think on both ends it's Cade versus OG,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be Asar Thompson, who got crossed up on the big shot against Jalen Brunson. So I think that it's going to be if I'm Asar Thompson, I take this matchup personally after what happened, after how the way it ended. This is the first game that they're playing against each other since that game 6 in Detroit. So I think it's going to be a fun game.
I love that you mentioned Asar Thompson there because I was thinking about that with him. We know he got crossed, he got moved out the screen on that crossover, and then Jalen Brunson hits the shot. That's always interesting in the game, though, Steph, because a player can get either too hyped up for the matchup and maybe be a little bit over aggressive, or they could be locked in defensively. So you never know how it goes. I do think that's a good one to keep an eye on. Last thing for me here is big picture. What does a good performance look like for the Knicks on Monday night in the Motor City, even beyond the final result? In your eyes, obviously Knicks fans want to see a win, but what does a good performance against Detroit look like for you?
I think anytime, with this particular Knicks team and also last season's Knicks team is when you hold the team to under 110 points and, you get everybody going. You love that Jalen Brunson can drop 40 on any given night, but this team is probably at its best when they're spreading the love, when Cat is getting his 25 and Jalen's getting his 25, and then you're getting 22 from OG and Mikal. We saw that very early in this season where they were really spreading the love. But, sometimes with the Knicks now, it's like they're taking turns. This team is at their best when they're distributing the ball and getting a lot of assists, and a lot of different people are scoring.
All right, there you go. Back to some offensive distribution, also playing some defense. That'd be good for Knicks
Yep.
fans to see once again. That is Stefan Bondy, our beat reporter here at the New York Post, covering Knicks. He will be at the game on Monday night in the Motor City. Knicks versus Pistons will be a big one. Steph, safe travels back after the game. I will see you soon.
All right, man.
Okay, so now let's shift to the other side of this matchup. And joining me is somebody who's had a front row seat to one of the best stories in the Eastern Conference this season. Is the Detroit Free Press Pistons beat reporter. He's also the host of the Pistons Pulse podcast. His name is Omari Sankofa II, and he joins me now. Omari, what's going on? How you doing?
Hey, it's going good, man. Thank you for having me on.
Oh man, glad to have you on. This is the big one. You and I were talking before. This is one fans on both sides have had this one circled on their calendar for quite some time. But I want to start off by talking with you a little bit about the Pistons, because when you zoom out on the Pistons season so far, what do you think has gone right most consistently for this team that has them right now at the top of the Eastern Conference?
I think it's the way that they've bought in and executed defensively. This is a team that's maintained the number 2 defense in the league all season, second only behind the Oklahoma City Thunder, who obviously have been a little bit on a different level this season on that end. But they say defense travels, and it's been good for them at home. It's been good on the road. It was a factor in them winning against the Cavs today, despite just shooting 41% from three. They have to get just enough stops to kind of eke that one out. So when you defend at that consistently high of a level, and then you also have a player like Cade Cunningham who can do so much for you offensively, I think you get a really good team. But it all starts with defense for them, and that's been elite from the jump.
No, it has been elite. You talked about them being the number 2 defense right now in the NBA. I'm curious about their defensive identity, though. How do you think it's evolved compared to last season, particularly against high usage guards? And obviously, I ask this because Jalen Brunson is a pretty high usage guard that they will see on Monday night in the matchup against the Knicks. How has their defensive identity evolved since last year?
I think there's a confidence and just a deeper understanding of what they can do on that end at a high level compared to last year. You take the film from the Knicks series, and obviously they did as good of a job as they could on Jalen Brunson, but there's only so much you can do against a player like that. But I think they just came back with a deeper resolve. They worked hard on getting better on that end. Jalen Duren, I think, has been a lot better defensively compared to last year. Isaiah Stewart already, I think, was on defense caliber last year, and he's been even better this year. He just got named Defensive Player of the Year. Even a guy like Cade, with the offensive load he's carrying, I think he's taken a step this year. Over his last 5 games, he's averaging 2.5 combined blocks and steals, which has just been an increase for him overall compared to last year. Steals are up. I think he's tied with his career high in blocks. So it's just a lot of guys understanding what they can do, and I think also understanding that when they execute on that end, it leads to winning. So that's just the biggest advancement from last year is they've gone from a good defensive team to an elite defensive team, and that's just guys buying in and understanding what it takes to get to that level.
Yeah, when you watch the Pistons right now, they're playing with so much confidence on the defensive end. You saw that in the game you just mentioned, their last game against Cleveland, getting the stops that they needed to down the stretch. And you also mentioned Cade Cunningham, Omari, and it looks like this year his game's taken another leap. We saw a leap last year, but it looks like his game's taken another leap. So what does Cade's growth look like to you this year in terms of, I would say, command, leadership, and then decision-making? What's that look like to you?
It feels like he's just got incrementally better in every aspect of the game. His assists have gone up. His turnovers relative to his assists are lower than they were last year. He's scoring the ball at a slightly higher rate. He's getting to the line more. I mentioned the still numbers and blocks are going up. So I think on both ends, he just truly understands that He's a guy that can make an impact in every way, and like that's been his task this season. He's been in the middle of a tear over the last week. His percentages, shooting wise, have just gotten better and better. Um, yeah, I think that's what happens when a guy, first gets that taste of success. That first taste of what it means to be a number one player on a playoff team, and he's taken that and he's polished his game. There's not so many guys in the league averaging 25 and 10 the way he is now, and it's not too many guards who carry as big of a load as he has offensively that can also give you something on defense too. So yeah, he's just the ultimate floor raiser for this team. They don't necessarily have that quote unquote second superstar, especially with Jalen Duren out tomorrow. But I think when like your best player is just an elite playmaker and an elite scorer, it makes it easier.
Oh, absolutely does for sure. When you look at this Pistons improvement though this year from getting to, you talked about it on defense, right? And how they've now jumped up to the top of the Eastern Conference. How much of that improvement is tied to continuity for this team versus schematic changes under the coaching staff in year two for JB Bickerstaff? How much do you think continuity has impacted the Pistons' improvement this season?
Yeah, I think continuity is a big part of it. All of your top defenders last year were guys that were drafted by the previous regime, Troy Reaver, and they've developed together. Sar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, I think, are two of the top guys at their positions defensively. Like I mentioned, Cade, he's been at a pretty high level in that area. Jalen Duren, he's taken a step forward, and then even some guys they added. Javante Green has been really great for him defensively. And then Ron Holland, who Trajan Langdon picked fifth overall last year, has been a difference maker on that end as well. So it just, again, I think it just goes up and down the roster. But you have a couple of new guys adding to what was already established here, with the expectation that eventually it will be a really good defensive team, and that's what it's grown into.
That's absolutely what it's grown into right now. But now we got to get to the fun stuff here, Omari, because after being eliminated by the Knicks last spring, my question for you is someone who's been around this team, how motivated does this group appear for this matchup, the first time they're going to face the Knicks since they ended their season last spring? How motivated is this group to get a little payback on the Knicks right now?
Oh, they're extremely motivated. I think the way that series ended kind of sticks with you over the course of the offseason. Obviously, the crazy shot Jalen Brunson hit over Asar Thompson, but even in previous games, just the clutch shot making down the stretch from him and Karl-Anthony Towns. And then there was also a game where Tim Hardaway Jr. didn't get a call that he felt a lot of people on the team felt he should have got and would have swung the outcome of that game. So 6-game series, like it really came down to the margins. Like I think that's the type of playoff loss that fuels you and helps you get to that next level. And we've seen that with the Pistons. I mean, they're number one in the East. Um, I think they're 3 games over the Knicks, so they've gotten off to a much better start. But until you actually get out of the first round, I think they understand that that's the next charge for them. So, I mean, it starts tonight, right? Knicks are a team that you're going to have to be able to beat to accomplish that ultimate goal of winning a championship. And you saw what happened last year. And that was your first shot at showing, hey, that wasn't a fluke. We're here, and we can prove that we're the better team this time.
Let me ask you this too. Like, how much do you think they are better? Because Stefan Bondy was just saying, as a follow-up to that, he was saying to me, hey, look, the Pistons are good, but people aren't necessarily believing them. Some people aren't believing them because they haven't seen them go through the process, right? They haven't seen them win around. They haven't seen them go further and take those steps, but you got to get there. Do you think this is a team that's kind of ready to win a round or two in the postseason, or dare I say even more?
Yeah, I think they're ready. I mean, I think that's fair, right? Like, you never know how good a team is until you get to the stage where it matters most, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen teams win, 50, even 60 games and then go into the playoffs and not deliver on that. So they do have to prove it in the postseason at some point. But a lot of what they've done this season, I think, is sustainable. The defense, that's not going to go anywhere in the playoffs. Offensively, yeah, you have some drawbacks that I think will reveal themselves in the postseason. Outside of Duncan Robinson, you don't have a lot of elite shooting. As we talked about, don't really have that second star next to Cade. And I actually think the series with the Knicks showed just how important it is to have two guys you could get to, right? Brunson may not be able to get it done one night, but then you can lean on Cat, who's a ridiculous shot maker in his own right, and the Pistons don't really have that. So, I think they have what it takes to win a playoff series. You just kind of compare the top of the East and the bottom. I think there's a pretty clear separation, and Pistons obviously are in that first group. Can they make a deep postseason run? That's the next step. And they're going to have to show that, we can knock down threes. Yeah, we can find ways to square the ball when Cade's not getting it going for whatever reason. Those are the types of questions that, dictate good regular season teams from good playoff teams, and that's something that they're going to eventually have to do.
Yep, they're going to have to answer those questions for sure. Now, look, when you're going from one season to the next or a playoff loss, we always think about the lessons that are learned. What lessons, if any, Omari, do you think carried over from that playoff loss last year into this season's approach and to where this team is right now as we approach the halfway mark of the NBA season?
Just the margins. I think just how thin that line between winning and losing is, and like when it comes down to it, every single play matters. I think they felt heavily the mistakes they made, the plays they couldn't make down the stretch that led to their exit. And I think the entire series was decided by less than 6 or 7 points. So every loss that they had, they felt like, oh, we could have and probably should have won that game. So that's what they took away from it is there's a level of perfection you have to reach if you want to consistently win. That's really been their charge this year, right? Like we understand that we can't have too many wasteful possessions. Again, I think today's game in Cleveland was a great example where they had 11 turnovers in the first 18 minutes and then 5 the rest of the game. It's just understanding, to nip things in the bud, before they become problematic. And that's the maturity aspect that I think they really have been able to display this season.
Got you on that. Now, I want to talk to you. You mentioned Isaiah Stewart before. He's drawn some attention for his defensive impact. He just was named Eastern Conference Defensive Player of the Month in December. What has stood out to you the most about his role and presence this year? He was opening eyes last year, as you mentioned, right, as an impact defensive player, but it almost seems like he's leveled up defensively as well, too. So what's been going right for Beef Stew on the defensive end?
Yeah, he's been one of the elite centers on that end, averaging like over 2 blocks a game and not that many minutes. I don't think he's averaging more than 24, 25 minutes a game this season. But it's not just the shot blocking. He's just genuinely one of the best rim protectors in the league. Absolutely somebody who's a massive shot deterrent down there. He's got to lead the league in block dunks. Pretty much every time somebody tries to go for a poster, he's right there with them trying to block it. And at least half the time, he's getting the better of the player that tried to poster him. But he's got great feet. His wingspan, he could just impact so many shots, like even just outside the paint. He blocked a Donovan Mitchell 3-pointer today, for example. And then I think offensively, he's taking a step forward too. What you get is just a extremely effective two-way player, but it's the defense I think that separated him. And he was elite last year. This year he's just swatting even more shots. And I think he just has an even better understanding of timing and just the sheer capability of the shots he's able to contest. So nothing goes uncontested when he's in the game. He's going to make sure he's everywhere.
You just made me think about something there. We need to start keeping a stat of people that are blocking dunks or potential posters. Like that's a stat we need to keep because it's impressive. Somebody's trying to bang it on you and you erase it. That could be a good look. Now, you mentioned that one of the things when you look at this roster is and this has been talked about with the Pistons, they don't really have that second star, right, Omari? And there's been trade rumors, I say, around the Pistons potentially looking to upgrade their roster. How open is the organization to making a trade versus kind of still having a little bit more of that continuity and letting this group continue to grow together? Where are they, and do you know maybe a little bit what you know about where they are right now and whether they want to make a trade or not?
I think broadly they would like to value continuity this season, continue to let this core grow together and see what it can accomplish on its own. We've seen young teams, sort of ascend to that status on its own just through player development, like most recently, obviously, OKC.
Yep.
And if you need to eventually go get someone else, you can do that. But, given that this is, their second season where you could view them as being ahead of schedule. They're still so young. Duran just turned 22, Cade's 24. I think Jaden Ivey's 23. Sar's 23. Like these guys are still really young, and they've still got growth ahead of them. Ron Holland turned 20 this season. He's probably got a play or two a night where he just hits a wild layup, and he's one of the steals leaders in the leagues as well. So they don't want to disrupt this if they don't have to. And I think everything that they've gotten from a data standpoint so far shows that that patience is being rewarded. So you can't ever completely rule out them making a move. I think it's always a possibility, but I don't think they're viewing this trade deadline as a we need to go get that second star for Cade right now type of deal.
Right.
I think they're comfortable allowing this to develop, and those are decisions you can make down the road, and you do have time just because of how young they are.
Yeah, they're so young. I think people forget about that with this Pistons team. When you look at this Pistons team, Omari, what matchup advantages do the Pistons have against the Knicks team that's really been struggling defensively over this past week? What matchup advantages do you feel like the Pistons have that they can take advantage in this matchup coming up?
Yeah, I think when you are missing Jalen Duren and Tobias Harris, that hurts you offensively. But when you're going against a defense like the Knicks, who have been, like a bit softer on that end, I think that probably doesn't hurt you as much. Cleveland, like it was tough. I mean, you're still going against even without Jared Allen, you still have Mobley, you've still got these long arm defenders that you're dealing with. The Knicks don't pose that type of threat defensively, so it's conceivable that a guy like outside of Cade Cunningham, but Jaden Ivey could step up and fill that void. I mean, their two-way guard who's been really good this year, Dennis Jenkins, had a 21-point second quarter, went 6 of 6 from three today. So you have multiple guys who can step up and kind of fill that offensive void. And then I think with that, like you're the number 2 defense, the Knicks are going to be tough to stop. You've got two guys and Cat and Brunson who have been carving teams up. And you also don't have Duren, I think, which hurts you a bit from a size standpoint. But you still have a Sar. You still have Stu. I think Paul Reese was one of the best third centers. And then you've got, wings, right? Like you've still got Ron Holland, like I mentioned. You've got players up and down. Javonte Green, who's been really good defensively. I think matchup-wise, the Pistons can still match up with them defensively. The main thing is just can you get enough shots against their soft defense to hang? Because again, you have Cat and Brunson, you're still going to have to make some shots. So get somebody else other than Cunningham going, and you have a much better chance at winning this game.
That's a fair point. With the Knicks, they're a top 3 to 4 offense, so they're going to be able to put up some points there too. Is that the thing that concerns you the most, maybe, Omari, about facing the Knicks from the Detroit standpoint, even with them coming in here on the 3-game losing streak? Is it is what concerns you the most the fact that you got to put up points with them, or is it something else?
I think it's the fact that you have to put up points. Like I said, you're a great defense, but you're missing some size with Duren, so that might hurt you on the glass a little bit. Of course, there's also, just not having, to have Stu, play almost the entire game just to make sure you match up. If they struggle to shoot from 3, like Knicks have a bunch of guys that can knock down threes, Brunson and Cat included. Even with a good defensive night, you want to make sure you could just score enough points on your own. And, they have OG Anunoby that can throw at Cade, and you've got Mikal Bridges, so they can match up there as well. So, for the Pistons, I think their offense is going to determine the game. If they can keep pace, I think there's a chance they can win. If they're struggling to make shots, if Cade's, got to play hero ball down the stretch, then that's going to be tough for them to pull this one out.
All right, I guess last thing for me here, Omari, is, and we talked about this before, Pistons fans and Knicks fans have had this game circled for quite some time. First time these teams are meeting since the playoffs last year. So when Pistons fans in particular look at this game with the Knicks, what do you think would define a statement performance for Detroit? That, especially right now, at the top of the East, Knicks are coming in here struggling a little bit. What does a statement performance from the Pistons look like to you?
I think a statement performance is you come home on the second night of a back-to-back, just got a good win in Cleveland, and you come back and you do the exact same thing against the Knicks. The game never being in question. Maybe that's a 7-point win, maybe 8 points, maybe more. But you walk away from this game thinking, yes, we are the best team in the Eastern Conference. Like there's a clear gap between us and then the number 2 team, who after tonight will still be the Knicks. Although I know Boston's sort of in that mix as well. But long story short, if you're the Pistons, you've got a 3-game lead in the entire conference. You want to make that clear. Like, we are the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference. Knicks, you are number 2. I think that's a fairly commanding win, whether that's 7, 8 points, whether that's more. I think anything by that margin, you feel pretty good that this Pistons team is one that can continue to win and maybe make some noise in the playoffs too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because the Pistons could make that statement there. The Knicks will also want to end their skid coming on this 3-game loser streak. So it's very interesting for both teams. Both teams, as we've noted, not whole. There are going to be some players missing this one. Josh Hart, Landry Shamet out for this one. Pistons without Jalen Duren, Tobias Harris, and Caris LeVert. Any word on him in terms of playing? Caris LeVert is
no word yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was day to day after today's game. Last I checked, the Pistons hadn't updated his status yet, so there's a chance he could be back. But absolutely, Tobias and Duren, as you said, will be out.
All right, so we will see how that is. Big game Monday night in the Motor City, Knicks and Pistons. That is Omari Sankofa II. Check him out with the Detroit Free Press. Also, a host of the Pistons Pulse podcast, does a great job there. Omari, pleasure connecting with you, brother. Appreciate you coming through here on New York Got Game, be able to talk some Knicks Pistons. We'll have to do it again soon.
Definitely, man. I appreciate you for having me.
All right, when we look at everything, this is a big game for the Knicks, and I agree with Stefan Bondy, our first guest here on the show. We talked about the fact that this is a game that can do a lot for the Knicks' confidence, because right now the team has not looked confident over the last 3 games. Do I think this is the end of the world, this 3-game slide? No. Do I think it's cause to panic among the Knicks fan base? No. Do I think there are things that you can legitimately be concerned about? Yes. And particularly for me, I know the offense has slipped a little bit, and they're down to 4th in offensive rating according to Cleaning the Glass. But that's not my biggest concern. The biggest concern for me is how the defense has looked, and it's been wildly inconsistent all season. The Knicks have not shown they have had the ability to get stops, particularly when it counts. We saw this last week in the game against San Antonio on New Year's Eve. Knicks unable to get stops down the stretch, and that hurt them. And right now, they're just below average, if you want to talk in terms of defense in the league. According to Cleaning the Glass, they are 16th in defensive rating. I've been saying this all along on this show, all season long. The Knicks have to get better at that. I did believe they could get somewhere between top 8 to top 10 in defense. They got some work to do if they want to get there. But you heard Mike Brown talk a lot about adversity after their loss on Saturday to the Sixers. And the Knicks are facing adversity, 3-game losing streak. But now it matters what they're going to do. They've been punched in the face. How are they going to respond? And that is going to be the key thing to see against Detroit. National TV game on Peacock. Everybody's going to be watching. First time these teams meeting since they met in the playoffs last spring. Now we've got to see how it all goes down for the Knicks. So if they're going to get to where they want to go, and they're going to have to play that kind of championship level defense, the defense is going to have to get better. And so we'll see. This is the first real test, the first time that, Knicks fans are feeling some angst about the team. And look, a 3-game losing streak was going to happen at some point this season. At some point we're going to do that. People are going to question Mike Brown and all that stuff. But I think if you're a Knicks fan, you got to like the fact that this matchup is coming right now. They have this game, then they have the Clippers this week before they head out on a West Coast road trip. So I think this matchup against Detroit comes at a fantastic time. I'm with Steph on this too. Is it a real litmus test? No, but it's still a big game because the Knicks need to get their confidence back, and let's see if they can get that swagger back that we saw from them during a pretty good December and during that run to winning the NBA Cup. That's going to do it for this edition of New York Got Game. Got to thank my 2 guests on the show. We had Stefan Bondy rock with us from Detroit, and also Omari Sankofa II of the Detroit Free Press rock with us too to break down the Pistons. Appreciate them both. Got to appreciate the people that make the show look great. Producer Erica Block, production assistants Tommy Cohen and Jessica Thiessen, and the great editor Eduardo Guerrero doing a fantastic job here. I'm Dexter Henry. Enjoy the week. We've got a lot more coming up. Watch party on Monday for the Pistons game. Monday night, we're doing a watch party for the Pistons game. That'll be fun. Myself, Brian Fonseca, and Rebecca Chasen of Knicks Film School will be here for that. We'll also have a live show for you later in the week before the Knicks head out to the West Coast. So that should be a lot of fun. Be good, be well. Once again, Happy New Year to everybody. We'll catch you next time on New York Got Game.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.